and welcome to our show, The Awakening, here on WGSN-DB, the Going Bold and Going Going Solo Network. Blah, blah, we have all of that in my mouth. So the information and opinions expressed on this show are just that, the opinions of the individual speaking based on their individual personal experiences. They are not intended to diagnose and do not constitute professional advice or recommendations. My name is Tina Huggins, and this is Joe Huggins, and we are graced today with the beautiful Christin Becker. Christin is a certified CDC certified divorce coach and a CDC certified transition and recovery. She also holds a BS degree from St. Cloud State University in Minnesota and specializes in women transitioning through and from the divorce and emphasis on co-parenting with a high conflict co-parent. So welcome, Christin. Did I get that all right?
Yes, you did. Thank you very much.
Good. I was like, get everything.
I know, sorry.
So before we get started, Christin, after we talked, I kind of put some notes together that I kind of wanted to explain a little bit about narcissism. I feel that it's necessary to explain it because so many people call their soon-to-be exes or their exes a narcissist. And that's kind of like the key word, the coin word that's everybody's throwing around right there. But actually, to be a narcissist, you have to be diagnosed by a therapist to be classified a narcissist. So we can say that they're narcissistic, but we really can't say they're narcissists. We can say that we're pretty sure they're narcissists, but we can't diagnose that. So right. That's an important characteristic. And then I was told, and I think you probably remember this from school too, that there's less than 6% of the population that are actually diagnosed as narcissists. Yes. Now, that could be because they hide it real well and nobody really on the outside gets to see that. That's what we call covert narcissist. Or like a true narcissist, they are unable and unwilling to take any responsibility for anything, so they won't go to a therapist to get diagnosed. So those are reasons why maybe some of them aren't. But in a lot of cases, they're what you're referring to here as high conflict. And so I talk about that, especially when I talk about my ex, because I believe there might be some narcissistic traits in there, but right. Most of our fights and everything were situational. And in almost 100% of the divorces, there is going to be conflict, especially in the beginning, because that's why you're getting divorced, right?
Right.
All of that said, I would like for you to kind of tell me a little bit about your story and how you became how you chose to become a divorce coach.
Okay, awesome. I agree with so much of what you've said. I think so much is put out there about narcissism and everything. And I had never even heard the term until like 7 years, maybe 15, 10, 12 years ago. I don't even know, before I left my marriage. And I was like, one of the things I had heard about narcissism when I first came upon me was when I had walked out and took a week off of the marriage and stuff, because it was a toxic situation. It was an unhealthy marriage. And we had 4 children. And I believed in my vows. I believed in marriage. I still believe in marriage, 100% believe in marriage. We went through all kinds of different things to try to make it work. And I believed that he truly wanted to make it work, which is what also helped me hang in there, because nobody gets married to end it and to plan for a divorce. And I think there's so many women I work with. I have 2 male clients, but the majority of my clients are women. Stereotypically, it tends to be that way, but it's not 100%. We're just not quitters. And you look at your family like you just don't want to quit on what your dream was. I think I finally hit a wall when my daughters were 14 at the time. And I was realizing I am modeling something that I don't want them to ever have. So I finally hit my point of where I needed to leave. And I don't remember the chaos at the beginning. I think you just get through it. And when I'm counseling my clients now, it's like, I'm 4 years out, and it's like, you just keep taking those steps, and every step is to that new future. And it was so interesting to me because doors opened for me that were not available to me when I was in the relationship, because I was kept in a box. That every time I was shining at something, whether it was PTA president, whether it was the basketball coach at the junior high or whatever, I was told to pull back on those roles. And so I did, because I needed to focus on being the wife and mother of the family. And I felt like that was what my choice was. But in all honesty, it wasn't a choice. It was what was kind of demanded and commanded of me. So I really realized when I walked away what I had been missing out on. And I didn't even know it when you're in it. And that's really what's opened my eyes to what I was living and understanding just the control of it. Do I know whether he is or isn't the narcissism personality? I really don't care, because it doesn't change anything for me. My reality was what it was. I know what I was living. I know what I was feeling. And I know that 2 months after walking away, a complete stranger walked up to me when I was wearing a mask, because it was 2020, saw my eyes and said, your eyes are sparkling. And that was a complete stranger. And that was 2 months after walking away. So it made me just realize what was opening up in front of me. My attorney made a comment to me, every time something happens with the divorce, you just keep showing up. You're calm. It doesn't affect you. We could really use your help in the office with some of our more emotional clients. I'm like, oh, what would that look like? And a friend of mine said to me, well, what if you could get certified in that? And that's when I found the CDC program that you and I both have our certification in. And it was so interesting, because that was a Thursday night, and I researched all weekend for things like certifications. It was the only program I found at the time that was accredited, which mattered to me, because then you have to have an accreditation CE to maintain credentials. And the classes started the following Tuesday. And that's what I'm saying. Things just happened. Things just opened up for me, because I didn't have a thumb on my head anymore. It's like God was showing me what I was meant to be doing. And my kids are super supportive of what I'm doing, because they realize that I'm taking the pain that has happened in my life and using it to serve others. And they're really proud of what I'm doing. And the main reason I do what I do is the kids are always watching. If you have children, they're always watching, and life is going to throw you curveballs, and you have to decide how you're going to get up from those, or if you're going to let it define you. And I did not want to be defined as a divorcee. So I stayed a really lot longer than I ever probably should have. But I'm really proud of the way we've raised our 4 kids. They're a combo of both of us. I don't regret it. But I am proud of myself for finding the courage to not quit on me anymore, and helping the kids see that if it is to be, it's up to me. I've said that since they were little. They see me doing it every day. So it's important. Anyway, that's kind of the long and short of it. Like, I truly believe in marriage, but unfortunately, he was not going to be capable of giving me my happy ending. And when I realized that truth, I knew it was okay to walk away.
Well, and there's some parts of your story that fit in a little bit with mine. And I am lucky with my kids too, that my kids, when my kids they're older than his kids, so they're older than your kids. And my kids have been wonderful since day one. They go spend time with their dad. They didn't live with their dad Of course, my oldest was leaving for the Navy when I left their dad. And the youngest eventually just found his way to wherever I was staying. And in some cases, he slept on the floor. And it's not because he didn't love his dad. It's just that I was a stricter parent, and he really resonated with that. And he needed his mom because of that. But what's the coolest part about me? You know, you talk about your kids are always there watching. My kids, they spend time with their dad, and they never talk about their dad to me. And the same with their dad. He never talks to him about me or anything that's going on. Now, my youngest son did tell me just recently that my husband and his wife, his new wife, she's dealing with some health issues. And so I just told my son, I'm like, thank you for letting me know. I can keep them in my prayers, but make sure you communicate with your dad, because if something would happen, he's going to need you. So, and that's the first time. And I've been divorced for 21 years in June. So that's the first time that I remember them ever coming and telling me anything that's going on in their dad's life.
Right. Well, and I think it's important as a co-parent, like mine, they're now 18, 22, and 23, you know, that this is their father. It's not going to do me any good to like try to diagnose or say anything. It's not going to change anything. This is still going to be their dad. So I don't want them to feel bad about who he is. They have a relationship with their dad, and I want them to. And they're just going to have to navigate that themselves. And they know that they have that constant with me always. Honestly, I made mistakes initially when the girls would come back from their dad's house. I would say, so how did it go? What happened? Because I would want to know. Or did I want to know because I wanted to know that things weren't done correctly? But I learned to focus when they would come home to say, I'm so happy you're here. I'm looking forward to our week together. Let's plan our meals. What do we want to do? What do we get to do? So I learned to focus it on us. And then if they wanted to share something, they were in a safe place and they would, but I stopped asking because it wasn't about, I couldn't change anything over there anyway. And I really talked to my moms or my women I work with about that, making the relationship, because when you're a parent and you're used to being a stay-at-home mom, the last thing you want to do is have 50% time where they're gone. Right. And that's hard. So really focus on the time that you have with them, because there's nothing you can control over there anyway. So that
shouldn't be trying to control anything over there.
Yeah, you're wasting your energy. Take that time of the week when they're not with you to focus on reinventing yourself with something new, or filling it with other things that you enjoy, or finding things. I have all kinds of stuff I could talk about there, but it's a focus on healing, during that time.
Yeah. So, and I know I shared this part with Joe here. This is that when I first left the home, because I'm the one that left, I didn't do that well. I didn't do it right. I didn't do it well. I said all kinds of things that I shouldn't have said about their dad. I wasn't really throwing him under the bus, but I was like trying to inform the kids of what he was doing that they didn't, or probably did know about. But right. So, and I know that you have dealt with some of that kind of stuff a little bit.
Quite a bit. And I'm glad I have, I'm going to say, thousands of clients, because I was hurt so bad that I shared with, and my clients aren't just clients, they're great people. We have a great relationship and that kind of stuff. And I wouldn't share it with everybody, but there's quite a few clients that came in, and if it got onto that topic, and it seemed like those doors opened up automatically. It's just like whatever was said opened those doors, and then I could share, without just going cold with them. Right. And but there was a lot of pain, and I had to work that out, and I had to tell my story a lot of times. So thank God I didn't wear one person out, because and I did have lots of counselors and churches that I'd go to. So I had right. a lot of, so, but yep, that's a little bit and as far as like with the kids and that kind of stuff, I know I shared too much with them, and I know she shared way too much going the opposite way. Like, I'm going to
Right.
ruin your dad, I'm going to bankrupt him, I'm going to make him fall flat on his face. That's extreme. But
Right.
that's what,
Well, I think divorce brings out the ugly. And that's why I'm, if there isn't toxicity, it's going to bring out some of it anyway. And I mean, I've even caught myself just getting, angry in circumstances. And I really work with my clients about responding versus reacting, because a reaction is usually going to go haywire. And but we're all human, and you have to give yourself grace. So I think it's important to understand that this is a process that we've not planned for, the divorce especially. There's so many emotions. You've probably heard this, Tina, that divorce is 80% emotional. And so 10% legal, 10% financial. It's kind of the piece that ends up not getting the attention. But it's the piece that if people would understand that divorce coaches are available to help you navigate all of this crazy chaos that is happening, you'll make better financial decisions. You'll respond better. You'll make better legal decisions. You'll respond better by having that support of somebody who's not going to shoot. You can talk to your girlfriend. I could have talked to my mom. She would have just riled me up more and agree with me. It's not going to help you make those decisions, So I think it's just a key piece of, like, where do we want to spend our energy? We can figure out why they respond the way they do, why they do what they do, or we could just say, let it go. What can we control in this environment?
So I kind of laugh a little bit about you saying you can talk to your mom or your girlfriends and they might make it worse. When we had our show last week, he talked about the same exact thing with his best friend.
right. And he would have so much more to say that I had to carry around all that anger. And it's like, I can't handle any more anger. I got enough of my own. So,
Right.
And you're right. That's where a divorce coach would come in so handy, because they're not going to get worn out from you. That's their
Right.
job. They're trained, they know what, and then that way you can heal a lot better, and
Right.
instead of spreading your dirty laundry everywhere and then wish
Right.
you hadn't or whatever. But
Right.
yeah, so I didn't have a
Yeah.
divorce coach back then.
It's funny. Also, I think it's important for people going through this to have a quick script of, like, when you find out that you're getting a divorce or whatever. The majority of our friends in our community have said, I'm so happy for you, because they understood or saw things that maybe I didn't see, kind of thing. But those that didn't maybe know the two of us together or whatever, I would just say, you know what, he's a good man. He just wasn't a good partner. And keep it simple. And it doesn't do me any good. He's we're both going to still live in the community and do things. And it's true. He's very good at business and different things. Unfortunately, you just can't run your family like a business, And so it just having a quick little script so you don't have to. I have a client right now I'm working with who is still going through the community with her 4 kids. I felt like it's me 4 years ago working with her. It's been very interesting. But dealing with the baseball and dealing with all the different things that they go through and having to show up at those games. And she's like, I just had to brace myself for all the questions. And I said, but you did it. You showed up. That's a huge step. And you were there for the kids. And unfortunately, he didn't show up. So everyone's like, where is he? Well, I'm not sure. So we worked on having a script. So the next time she's ready to just me and the kids figuring it out. So, but it's hard when you're dealing with a breakup that is high conflict. So
yes, most definitely. So did you have a question that you wanted to ask, Christin?
Sure. From your experience with high conflict cases, what's the number one conflict? Is it money, fighting over the kids and the time spent, how real estate split up, debt, or something else?
I think you could put all of those into one bucket and say it's control.
Right.
Just finding a way, like whether if it is the money, if it is the kids' power, like when we were doing our co-parenting, the kids were older, they were 14. That's kind of why I waited a little bit longer. I wanted them to be able to have a voice. And so the way we were able to do ours was 50-50. We did that, with the girls having discretion, which meant if they wanted to stay at dad's longer, they could. If they wanted to stay at mom's longer, they could. If they had a birthday and they wanted it at mom's house, they could, but they needed to learn to use their voice. And I modeled for 14 years how not to have a voice. So it took them some time to learn to advocate for themselves, and they're doing that now, better, but it takes practice. And the other things would be, like, for example, lots of women are in this position where you're limited to the funds that you have available in the marriage. You're limited. You never even had a boundary in the marriage. You didn't know that you could have a boundary. So having those boundaries in separation or divorce helps you kind of take that power back a little bit. So for my situation and a lot of my moms I'm working with, we have them work on their, let's not do any text messages, only use the Our Family Wizard, only use email. That way your phone isn't lighting up with all these messages that have nothing to do with the kids, have nothing to do with the dog, have nothing to do with finances. You don't have, if the kids are in your care, you don't have to receive a message. There's nothing that's going to be pertinent. So block the call, little things like that so I don't know if I'm answering your question, but it seems like all of these things it's more like if there's a way for them to control the situation and have them exercise and flex, that's going to happen. So I help
what you're saying is control is the biggest conflict.
Right.
Someone wants to be in control of maybe everything.
Yeah. And if they're losing control because I was maybe that person that they were able to in the past and now they can't, they're going to exercise it in like, well, no, you don't get the dog this week. Or, no, I'm not going to pay for the kids. It doesn't say in the court records that I have to pay for soccer. It's not an academic extra. And just little things that would come up. And it was like, so I also recommend when people are working on their court documents to, if you're concerned about the details, put them in the documents, when it comes to any of the extracurriculars, because when you're doing horses or you're doing sports, you're doing club, anything, it's going to be expensive. And if the other party's not on board, or they're like, well, I'm giving you child support, this doesn't fall within that, you're just going to use it, I'm paying you already. So you find your loopholes or your ways, or putting, understanding that if you're questioning it, they're probably going to use that to not pay you. And I was limited in the marriage. I was given a budget of living within. And so that's, in his mind, thinks that that's all I need and to raise a family on, but forgets that our home business was where we navigated most of our finances through. So it's not having that, but understanding when you have a person that is so used to being in charge and in control of things, that they really truly believe their truth, and just finding a way. And I help my women, especially stay-at-home moms, find new ways to raise that bar. Like on the weeks that I didn't have the kids, I got my certification with divorce coaching, but I also, until I would get a few clients, I would go out and do door dashing and do different things like that just to feel productive and bring some money in. I was used to the dinner hour being like one of the busiest times of the day, and it was so quiet, and I hated it. And I could sit home and have a bottle of wine with Netflix, and it would add up to depression. So I finally kind of put myself like, wait a minute, what can I do instead that would bring in some money while I'm building clientele and help me feel productive? And it was great. I was a little embarrassed initially if I bumped into somebody, but then I was like, oh, you know what? My kids are at their dad's. I'm just out trying to stay busy. And they're like, oh, that's cool. So it was great. And I tell my people to think outside the box and be willing to try something new.
Yeah, I talked with one of my clients, where she's going to end up having to pay child support, and she's going to be the one that has to do because she makes more than him by
Right.
quite a bit. And then he's not turning in all of his financials, which is a normal thing.
It
And
is.
you want to take care of that.
I didn't know my phone was going.
Yeah.
So the thing that I had suggested, I'm like, well, you've got to stay within the parameters, otherwise you got to pay more. But if you DoorDash, then you can keep it exactly where you want it to be. So the door dashing is a really great idea. So I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was funny because it was paying my car payments and raising the level. And honestly, the original reason I started was because my son was asking me for money, because they would never go to their dad and ask for money because the answer was always no. And so for me, I was like trying to find, I'm like, I'm trying, kiddo. I'm still, paying for your college tuition in spite of what's going on. I'm not going to let this affect you. So I was able to still do that and find a way through means. And I'm like, but you could DoorDash. Your mom's DoorDashing. If I can do it, you can do it. So it's more or less like just, hey, you can go out and make $50 in a half hour in San Marcos. I said, I'm out here doing, that in our little community. I'm sure you'll be busier where you are. So, but it's funny. Like I said, it's because the kids are watching. I just didn't want to have them ever sit back and, no, mom's figuring it out. So, and it happened.
And because you work a lot I work a lot with the co-parenting aspect, but most of my clients are in the divorce end of it. So we're co-parenting in the divorce. So we're working on the whole project here. But it's, the co-parenting aspect has a lot of parts and pieces that go with it, because I know that most states require you to take a parenting class. And in that parenting class, they teach you that what goes on at dad's house is none of your business, and what goes on at mom's house is none of dad's business.
Right.
And we've got to learn to do that. So as you work with them, so if we have client or prospects that are watching that need to have this little bit of information, what can you tell them, or would you tell them that could help them?
I think the main thing is I've already touched on it a little bit, is just really focusing on what you can bring to the table, what you bring in your environment, because you're not going to be able to control any of that aspect with what's happening over at the other house. I think it's important to not talk badly about their father or mother, depending on the situation, because they are half of that person. It's not going to do any good to make them feel like half of that is not going to be good for me. I have my oldest son, for example. I said, you are doing so well. You're pulling the greatness out of your dad, because there's some great things in him, really good things. He's a very good salesperson. I said, Jake, my son is pulling that really powerful part out. I said, but you're a blend of dad and I. You have that authentic piece of you that resonates, and that's helping you grow in your business. And I said, so I'm really proud of you finding those pieces that work for you, because you're a blend of both of us. And they know that they need to work through certain things. And so when I'm talking to my clients, it's really imperative that they're focusing on their relationship with their kids. I had one client that was so frustrated and spent the first 5 minutes of our call just venting about what was happening at dad's house, about the showers not being cleaned, them not having like the kids have to go over and take out the trash and do all the dishes, and they don't even want to be there, but they feel like they're doing all of this because dad's not capable. And I said, so we talked about it, and I said, okay, how are you feeling? And she's like frustrated, angry. And I said, well, tell me what you did with your kids when they came over. And then she started lightening up, getting excited. We were talking about college. We were going to paint her dorm room. Or not her dorm room, her bedroom in our new house, and do all this. And I was like, well, how are you feeling now? And she goes, I feel so much lighter. And I said, we need to focus on that part. You need to focus on your home, your environment, your consistency, of what you can bring in your relationship with your kids, because they need to know when they're in that other environment that they can reach out to you. You hope that it will get better, but we're not in control of dad doing those things, or mom. I have one that is a mom. You're not capable. You cannot control it. You have to let it go. You can pray about it. You can hope it gets better, but you can empower your kids to speak up. Why don't you just talk to dad about these things? Or why don't you just talk to mom about these things? And if you can't do that, that's okay. But also encourage your children or have them in counseling, I think is super important when you're going through something like this with a parent that you're maybe not able to guide or help, or hope that they're going to do it your way. We got to let it go and hope the kids are going to see it and learn through it. But having a counselor, that the counselor for my daughters, and he signed off on it. He wanted them in counseling. He agrees that she's been good for the family, but she has really helped them use their voices.
Good, good.
And they will still reach out to her. And I think it's great, because when they're teens, shoot, they went through COVID. That was hard. I think teens have so much that they have to navigate in life, let alone the divorce is just part of it. And everything else. So having them have those tools and being willing to set your kids up so that they can be successful and not have to just talk to you, and trust that there's others out there. I think one more piece on that is understanding that I think what I grieve is what I wish they could have had as a family, but understanding that in the community of what they're involved in, they're going to see healthy examples, and trusting that that's where they're going to get that from. Whether it's another soccer dad on our team who walks up to my daughter and gives her the big hug and said, because they both had knee injuries their senior year, neither of them got to play their senior season. It was super hard. Curveball in life. They had to keep getting through it in spite of that. And that kept me going in my coaching. But this dad wrapped his arm around both of my kiddos and said, the grit that you showed to show up every day at practice and support your team is harder than what those girls do on the pitch. And my daughter hugged that dad and said, you're my favorite soccer dad. And we both were crying, but it was just like, they have those good examples in their life, and trusting that you're going to take care of that with what you can control.
Yeah. And I know in his kids, and I think that they talk about this on an ongoing basis, but his kids have what they call their other moms, and because they don't feel that they had a good mom, and so they have all these other women that have been in their life that they call mom as well.
Surrogate mothers. So yeah, my kids have, well, I've experienced, seen it hands-on, you know, the surrogate moms that come in and that kind of stuff. It's like, there better not be any surrogate dads. There better not be any.
Right.
I can joke with my kids and that kind of stuff, and we just have a good laugh.
No, I think, you know, they can feel, I can see it in you, like you can feel that it's a peaceful relationship with you guys, you know, like how you would be with your kids and stuff. And it's like, that's what I always wanted. I mean, I talk to my kids about when they come here, I said, I've always wanted my home to feel hospitable, where it was where all the kids would come and stay, and where they would be after school, where they could open the pantry and just be at home. Cause it's the only way you're going to learn who their friends are and what's going on and be a part of the conversations. Or I'm the mom that would always drive them and do all these things. And we have that now. And even my mom and dad visited my new home last January. And my dad said, this is the first time I really got a chance to meet your kids, because there was no eggshells in the house, where they were all they were themselves, you know, because when we would go visit them, and I'm in California, they're in Minnesota, when I would take the kids there, they're on their like vacation mode. This was the first time that my parents could come and actually see them in their environment, where they were just completely comfortable just being, you know, and that meant a lot, and also made me kind of sad, but it meant a lot to me to have that reality kind of be spoken for my kids as peace too. So
that just kind of tells you that the thumb that was on your head was even on their heads, you know. I'm writing a book and I spent some time on that today. And so when you started talking about that, I'm like, that was the chapter I was working on. Is that
Oh, yeah.
control, the gaslighting, the control aspect.
Well, yeah.
Because that is part of the abuse aspect. And whether we saw it, like in my case, this is kind of funny, you know, you've talked and you've not mentioned that there was physical abuse. In my relationship, there was, and yet I can't call him an abuser. He abused me, but I do feel, at least to this point, I'm still working on this, that it was a situational thing. And we talked earlier before we came on about situational aspects of our relationship. So when we start through a divorce, almost 100% of the divorces will be there'll be conflict, because I mean, you're getting divorced. One of them wants to and the other one doesn't. And so there's fighting back and forth.
Right.
And where you're at, I mean, you're 4 years out, he's 4 years out, I'm 21 years out. And my ex and I actually, after I left, everything was good between us. It took me a while, and this is where my clients are at, is that they've been put down and belittled for so long. They're like this when they come to me, and then they get some power and they want to stamp their foot. And something I didn't say about using the word narcissist earlier is you don't want to try and persuade the courts that you're divorcing a narcissist, because that is a big no-no. And by that word out in public, you're a co-parent with them, and that's going to cause problems. And kids are usually the ones that pick up that problem.
Right. And it's interesting because you're just not going to, it's not going to help you in your situation to use the verbiage with your, in your situation. Like I have one that she's like, I just want to know why he does this and why. And I'm like, you've spent the last 7 minutes talking about how you're trying to help him be better, how you're helping him try to show up for the kids. That's a lot of energy, and you need that energy to reinvent you and get through the next week or the next day. Let's spend that energy on what you can actually have some success in. It's not going to matter. But it's interesting because you still have that hope. I still get caught up. I'm 4 years out. I just did a TikTok the other day about, yes, I'm human. I'm a divorce coach. And I still thought I could get through. You have those moments where you hope they're going to receive something that might click. Mm-hmm. It's okay. It's okay. It's not going to happen. And if it does, then praise God, because it'll make them a better co-parent and a better father, better mother, whatever the situation is. But either way, you want to wish them well and just focus on your life. And like I even told my friend, I was like, yeah, there's going to be moments that are going to come up because we will always be connected. We have children. I said, but at least it's not every day anymore. And that's huge. That's huge. And I don't want him to not have a good life, because he's always going to be my kid's father. I wish we could have made it? Yeah, I wish we could have made it. He wasn't capable of giving me what I needed. So I had to quit on that dream not happening and understand that it still can happen. It just will be different. So I think that's a key thing I wanted to say. Divorce doesn't have to define you. I think when divorce happens, it's because everything led to it. It's just as the formality of the end, everything was already happening to get it. Cause so many people are like, but I don't want to file. You know what? It was already over when you got to that point. And let it shape what your choices are going forward. And I think that's really important, is like, don't jump into things. If you see the questions or have boundaries in your relationship with somebody new, have boundaries with what you're going to require in your life and hope for, so
boundaries are very important, And you guys, you and I guess, we can have co-parenting relationship with our exes.
Right.
And Joe can't have a co-parenting relationship with his ex. She was way too abusive.
We have zero communication even now. And that's the way I want it, need it. I don't want to talk to her. I don't even want to look at her, you know?
I'm
Don't-
kind of with you, Joe. Honestly, I really am. I work with my clients on trying to get them to be co-parents, but in our situation, shoot, I'm with you. It doesn't, I have a physical reaction when I see him, kind of thing. We still have things that we're going to go through. We've got graduation coming up and different things like that. And I'm going to be fine because I'm going to show up for my kiddos and we can do it because it's about them. But we will have a party at my house for my side of the family, and he will have a party at his house for his side of the family. And it's the way it has to be. I wish it was different, but it was already like that when we were married. So why am I thinking it would be any different on the divorce side? I have even less control now. So I understand what you're saying. And it just happens to be that reality when you're dealing with somebody who's high conflict or whatever.
It takes some stress away, and I couldn't imagine talking to her. There's been too much water over the dam, under the dam, way too much to just, I couldn't even fake a conversation with her. So
Right.
even bother.
But-
Yeah, it's interesting because I was just invited over for the holiday. Well, you can come over. I'm like, I just ignored because really, I was like,
I have an aunt who does spend holidays with her ex and his wife because she's single and they just invite her. But so one of the things that Joe had to recently go through is one of his youngest daughters. He's got 2 sets of twins. He's got 6 kids.
oh,
He's got
They're great kids. Love them dearly.
I
wonderful
love
kids.
my twins. Yes.
Turned out great. Yeah.
One of his youngest twins got married, and she wanted her daddy, traditional, to walk her down the aisle. And he was all for that. But the ex was, the first day she pouted up on the porch because she was there alone and nobody was there with her. And she pouted up on the porch and everybody noticed it. And then the next day for the wedding, she demanded that they both walk her down. So the poor little girl was crying. Her mother made her cry as she walked down the aisle. And luckily, Joe was able to whisper up in her ear and said, "It's okay, honey. It's okay. This is all about you. You make it all about you." So that was the most important thing is that Joe let go of all of that. And he was good and he was able to do that.
Right. Yeah.
And if you watch them walk, it was Joe and his daughter, and the mother was way over off to the side.
Yeah.
She lost the war.
No, absolutely. And I think in those moments, I will have to say we had a very positive experience. My daughters had their senior night at for soccer, and one of them was on her crutches and the other one was able to dress out and play. But we walked with both of them together, and we were able to do that. And it was funny because the photographer knew this family dynamics and it's a small community. So he was able to catch a photo of just me and the girls and have them up. And at the end of it, as we're walking off the field, my ex said to me, he goes, "Do you want a photo with the kids?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I would love that." So he took one with my phone of me and the kids. And then I asked, "You want the same back?" And I did that for him. And I was like, I was proud of us for being able to do that moment. And so I think it's important when, like, you did that moment and were able to whisper to your kiddo, and but you can't guarantee how they're going to show up in that situation. So you just have to kind of brace yourself and prepare for it. And so you were able to be there for her. So gosh, that brought,
Right.
tears to my eyes.
Of course, I couldn't imagine not being there for them, and through thick or thin.
Yeah.
Right.
Always there. He's the best dad I've probably ever met.
Yeah.
Better than most moms, I'll tell you. He's
Yeah.
just full of love and care, and he's always there for his kids.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So I know we're getting ready to wind things up, I
Yeah.
throw in a little bit about my son got married, and my ex and I rocked that.
See,
You know,
that's
I got a position of, I was the groom's mother, so I got a position, the front seat, and I offered that to him and his wife. His
that's
wife declined it. His wife didn't want to have anything to do with me, but he and I have absolutely no problems. We very cordial with each other and share all those kinds of moments together.
right. I think that's wonderful.
Is there any last bit of information, Christin, that you want to offer the viewers?
I think the most part is we could talk about it like we did at the beginning. I think just where you're going to spend your energy when you're dealing with somebody who's high conflict, when you're going through a divorce, finding the diagnosis, or whether or not you can control how they're going to show up for events or how they're going to parent in their environment, are all things that we worry about, we concern. I just wish they would. All of these things happen in our own dialogue, but it's wasted energy because there's zero control. So I really want the viewers and people to understand that you have to focus on what you can control, which is how you're going to show up, how you're going to respond in the environment that you want to provide for your kids and your family. And I think that's the biggest thing that you can do when you're dealing with anything high conflict. I help my clients show up as their credible, authentic selves when they're coming into mediations, when they're coming into appointments with their attorneys or whatever they're doing. Come from a place of authenticity, because that's what's going to show. I talk with people about my story because I feel like you're either going to get it or you're not. But it's authentic, it's real, and it's night and day. The peace is very, very real on the other side if you find the courage to get out of something that's not healthy. And so only you guys, when client, not you, but people listening or watching know what their true situation is. You know what the truth is. There's going to be a truth that the other party is going to be sharing, especially when they're used to being in control. You have to just trust that it's going to work out. And I've lost some friends in the process, and that was hard. But my true friends are there, and new people have come in. And that's been provided. God's shown me where I need to be. And so I just, find, whether it's faith, whether it's meditation, whether it's whatever you do to find your strength, every step you take towards your new future is going to be a very amazing next chapter, because you're going to be able to be your authentic self. And I think that's important.
Yes.
So.
Well, thank you for that. And Joe, do you have any last minute information to give?
Keep the conflict low in your world, as in, that's where I could have worked on it better. And instead of having all this conflict, I mean, you could be in the middle of all this conflict, but choose a different route. You don't have to add more to the fire,
Right.
which is a true test. That's a tough one.
That is hard.
Easier said than done. But then again, if you had a coach, someone that a professional that has training, that'll take a lot of that away from you, and you don't have to deal with it. So there's emotions coming from every angle. You're afraid, you're afraid of losing, whatever you work for your whole life.
Right.
You're afraid of the unknown with how your kids are they gonna be okay through this? There's a lot of fear. So the more professional help you can get, the smoother it's gonna be.
Yeah, I had a client recently. You just triggered something in my mind about, like, when you're going through it, especially when there's kids involved, I try to get my clients to look at, how do you want your kids to view this and how you handle this 5 years from now?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it helps them pull back and go, okay, because there's situations where she's packing up her house or whatever, and I just want to burn all of his stuff. And I go, okay, you can want to do that, but let's pull back. And then I would ask that question. She's like, okay, it's a really great question, and even finding somebody else to gather up dad's stuff to put it into storage and let him deal with it when he wants to or whatever. But it's hard when you're dealing with the emotions of it. So what you said, it's hard. But that's where I really talk about that responding versus reacting, because the reaction is usually gonna not be what you would have chosen to do had you taken a 10-second break. So, you know, yeah.
So I just want the viewers to know that dealing with all this emotion, the divorce coach can help you deal with that. And like you've heard Christin say today, that she helps her clients see a different point. She wanted to burn her ex's stuff, but how are the kids seeing that? When you have a coach that can talk to you like that and help you see from a different angle, that is so helpful. I know back when I divorced 21 years ago, there was no such thing as divorce coaches.
Right.
And I left, and I didn't want to be seen as the bitch that left. So guess what I took? The clothes on my back, my car. Eventually I got some more of my clothes, a few pieces of furniture, and I took debt. He's got the house, he got everything, all the furniture, everything, and specifically the bed. So had I had a coach like Christin, I would have had a bed. The house may have had to have been sold, but I would have gotten on my feet way before I did. It took me 15 years. And that's where Christin or any coach can come into play. We are there to help you take those steps together.
Right. Right. Absolutely.
So if you are in a situation right now, if there is violence right now, and you are in the US, it's 911. Call, get the officers there, get that person out of the home, or if you have to, you leave the home. If you are in the UK, it's 999. Make sure you get somebody there that can help you and keep you safe. If you are in a domestic violence situation, please call the domestic violence hotline at 800-799-7233. That number again is 1-800-799-7233. And Christin, how can the viewers reach you?
I have a website, divorcerecoverycoach.com is the best way to reach me, divorcerecoverycoach.com. And I have my email, contact information. They can go to my calendar and book a free consult call with me. And when they book that free consult, we usually do an intake form so that we can maximize that call and make the most of how I might be able to help them through their situation. But I would love to connect and see if we could, work together and help you through a difficult time.
Very good. And Joe's and my contact information is, the website is divorcecoachspecialist.com. And you can reach us through the email at coachtinalynn@gmail.com. That's coach, COACH, Tina, TINA, Lynn, LYNN @gmail.com. So you can reach either Christin or I, and both of us offer that free consult. So make sure that you reach out. You can't get there from here if you don't ask for the help.
Thank you.
So thank you.
It was very nice to meet both of you. And Joe, nice to meet you this time.
As well.
Yeah. Thank you.